small town in the Mansfield Shire is a town with over 100 people population. 100, yes. And it's a tourist destination. Fair bit of history in the area. Welcome to another episode of TREV'S Bushland Adventures, and we are here, yes, in a small town of Jamieson. Jamieson, we're going to do a walking tour, fair bit of history places, and so we're just going to see what we can find here in Jamieson. Welcome to another episode. Let's go. Ridge's Cottage, built around 1864 by Michael Ridge, one of the area's early settlers. The Ridges were community blacksmiths and wheelwrights for over 50 years. Diggers Exchange Hotel. This is one of the only 3 hotels still operating at the end of the 19th century. This hotel was built in late 1870s and closed down in 1911. This is Matthews Cottage, the home of John Cole Matthews, a councillor and a businessman who ran the Mansfield Woods Point coach service between 1899 and 1914. This home, originally built in 1867 for Colonial Bank and Resident, for their first bank manager, Edwin Fitzroy Lusignan. This is Townsend's cottage, one of the town's original buildings. It was the butcher's residence. The butcher shop was located next door. This is the site of the Hibernian Brewery. The Hibernian Brewery was built in 1862 by Daniel Finn. It was situated on the northern bank of the Jamieson River. The original bridge was a toll bridge built by Daniel Finn in the 1860s. Over the years, several bridges were destroyed by floods. The current bridge opened in 1990 and was renamed as Foots Bridge. on this island where the Jamieson and Goulburn rivers meet. Fruit trees planted in 1860s by Dr. Nash still remain. Now I'm just sitting here on a park bench on an island. Yes, I hope you're enjoying this video so far. And a lot of shanty little houses, historic. It makes you feel primitive. It must have been primitive because very small shanty towns with little shanty houses. So now this is the Goulburn River. Well, actually the Jamieson River really. This is where the Jamieson River and the Goulburn River meets. There's a junction. We're going to have a look at that up ahead of us. We're on an island. Now I can't see any name to this island, so we're here in Jamieson. But the story goes is that where the Jamieson and Goulburn rivers meet, there are fruit trees that were planted in 1860s, back in the 1860s, that's a long time ago, by Dr. Nash. They still remained here today. So we might as well call this Nash Island. What do you reckon? Let's go and have a look. Let's have a look at the junction. Now this is what we known as the Jamieson River, where we looked at before. And this now is the junction where the Goulburn River meets. Now as you can see behind me on this island, it's a flooded area. It's a flood zone. When we had the flood just very recently and other floods during other times, this was all covered. The water would have been well over my head where I'm standing right now on this island here in Jamieson. It's a lovely area, it really is. Beautiful area. Good for fishing too. Juddy's hut, an example of an early miner's cottage, was built in 1933 by a miner by the name of Bill Darkey Herbert. It is named after World War I veteran Juddy Hampton, who lived here during the 1950s. police stables. The stables were built in 1862 as part of the original police camp. McQuilton's cottage, built in 1890s, but moved from Sailor Bill's Creek at the 10 Mile. This cottage was built by Martin McQuilton in the early 1890s at 10 Mile on Sailor Bill's Creek Road, and it was a 4-room cottage with steps down to an L-shaped veranda and a large kitchen off the L. Outbuildings consisted of a laundry, a wool shed stable, buggy shed and a fowl house. In 1939, Black Friday bushfires destroyed the outbuildings and fences, but the main house was saved and transported to Jamieson in the same year to be rebuilt in its present form. Mrs. Quilton then lived in the house until 1949, when it was sold, including furniture. After some years, Martin McQuilton's great-grandson purchased the house, still containing some of the original furniture. This is the Brewery Bridge, named after the Goulburn Brewery, which was built slightly downstream on the far bank by William Green Power in 1864. The original Chenery Street Bridge, which is later known as the Brewery Bridge, is simply known as the Licola Bridge. The brewery named referred to the Goulburn Brewery, which once stood at the end of Perkins Street. The Goulburn Brewery was built in 1864 by William Power, but purchased in 1875 by Richard Dale. After Richard Dale's death, the Goulburn Brewery changed hands several times and finally closed about 1901. The original bridge was washed away in 1870. The replacement survived until 1995, when the current bridge was opened. Here at the Jamieson Cemetery, here you will find headstones marking the final resting place of some of the area's early settlers and pioneers. Here at the Jamieson Cemetery, a lot of pioneers are buried here. I mean, Jamieson, not only a tourist town, it's also part of the goldfields. A lot of these areas out around the mountains are very rugged country, all goldfields. And the road goes past places like Cavington, A1 mining settlement, A1 settlement I think it's called, and Woods Point, and a place called Matlock. And of course the road goes all the way into Gippsland. So it's a long way, very windy, very rugged. You can get there, but you'll need plenty. Make sure you've got plenty of supplies of fuel and whatever. So this is as far as we go here in Jamieson, here at the cemetery, Pioneer Cemetery. So when you come to Jamieson anytime, make sure you explore the cemetery, because some of these graves go way back in the 1800s. 1894, there's one grave over there somewhere. 1894, that's old. Now I'm going to show you a lonely grave. A lonely grave. Sometimes you might find a grave that's very lonely on its own. So I'm going to check it out. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to head for it. And we're just going to walk down here. I mean, all these graves are over there, right? And all this is bush, dense bush. But you never know what you'll find. Now there is a lonely one grave here. Okay. During the gold rush days, of course, it attracted Chinese people. Loy Yim died, I can't remember that, in June 1905, age 77 years. Loy Yim at the lonely grave. So there, look, this is an example of some of the miners, the Chinese gold miners. You know, that lived in these areas. So yeah, I mean, all the hills and mountains, it's all rugged. There'll be lots of shafts as well, gold mining settlements, and it's all bush, rugged. Remember seeing the goldfields I showed you up around Reform Hill, around the Murderford, and there's an example, and also Rushworth, around Roo. There were miners everywhere, there were camps everywhere, there were homes, little shacks. So yeah, so here we are, cemetery, Jamieson. These graves are so old. Even trees growing through the graves. A lot of settlers during the gold rush days, and people who migrated the area. Yeah, it's the life that was. Look at that. Got a tree right in the middle of the grave. Very sad. Some of them go back to 1899. This one in front of me died 1902. Yeah, age 36 years. A lot of them died young too. They weren't old people, not always old people, but they were young people. 1900, the mining boom was over. After nearly 50 years, then came World War I, the Depression of 1930s and World War II. By the 1950s, Jamieson had settled into a slower agricultural lifestyle. Jamieson became part of the Mansfield Shire in 1919, and today, with a permanent population of about 100 people, it has become a popular tourist destination. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video here in Jamieson. This is a picnic area and a fishing area, so this is the Jamieson River that's behind me. I've had a great time, I've had a ball. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of lunch, so I'm going to finish this video. And so my next adventure, we're going back to the Warby Range. I remember the Warby Range on my very first episodes with the Pine Gully Walk, you know, Jubilee Falls, Brian's Falls. We're going back there to the Warby Range, and we're going to climb Taminick Hill. Look out at Taminick Hill. It's an awesome view up there. There'll be a big transmitter tower up there. That'll be my next adventure. See you then.